You see about 3, 4 lines up there. Can you see those lines?
Yep.
Okay. Now the lowest line on it is the blue one at the bottom.
Yep.
You know who that is, don't you?
Of course, that's us.
Okay. Now above that you got what? What's above you?
Hispanic.
Okay. Now go up to the next one. The red one. Who is that?
White.
Okay. And the top one is who?
Asian.
Okay. Now in this country right now, Asians have the highest per family income in the country. We didn't even have any Asians over here until way after the Civil War. Now look at them. They're over here right now doing extremely well, better than anybody in the country. And look at see where they started. Look what year they started. Right. Look at that year. What is that? That 19 what?
I can't tell. I can't see the year. Because it's at the bottom. I can't see the bottom.
Okay, you can't see the bottom.
Yeah,
Right
show me the bottom.
here.
Okay, it looks like about 1985, 1990.
That's right, in 1985. They started pouring in here in 1985. And in that short period, up here at the top, they became the highest grossing group in the country because they have a code of conduct, they practice groupism, okay? And they buy from their own people and nobody else. They told me, said, Dr. Anderson, we don't buy from anybody else. Only you black folk will buy from any and everybody. You have no common code of conduct. You have no sense of need for your own people. You spend your money in less than 24 hours. You spend $1.3 trillion into the hands of all the other groups. You only keep 2 cents out of every dollar you earn every year. 2 cents.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam wa rasulullah wa ba'd. In the name of Allah, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon his last and final messenger as to what follows. Family, friends, foes, haters, and hateettes, welcome back to the Feachaz. I greet you all in peace and love and no hatred in my heart. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So before we begin, please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit me up on Patreon. As you know, we got a lot of haters up in here. And also on the Patreon, we have the Feachaz archives, so check that out. And today's topic was so important, okay? I mean, it is so incredibly important that I wanted to make it like an open topic for the men. I wanted to make it like talk to the men directly about this topic because this topic essentially is at the apex of the issues when it comes to Black people, particularly Black Muslims, and why we're failing. And as we heard from the clip from Dr. Claud Anderson, and we're going to go back to Dr. Claud Anderson as well, as we heard from that clip, is that every other people group, they practice what is known as a code of conduct. Now, of course, in Islam, you have a code of conduct. Islam is actually the code of conduct. However, in our time, nobody really practices it, including the Muslims, or especially the Muslims, and particularly Black Muslims. And because of this failure or lack of desire to stick to a particular code of conduct, this is why we are essentially failing in almost every aspect of life, whether it is economics, education, and whatnot. So before we begin, we're going to define, what a code of conduct is, right? So a code of conduct is essentially a set of principles and expectation that guide the behavior of a group. And what we find is that we don't have this amongst Black people. What Black people practice are what other groups impose on them in order to keep them backwards. So you find Black people talking about the bro code or the code of the streets or whatnot. That's what they consider a code of conduct. You get me? But rather, a code of conduct in itself are a set of principles and ethics and morals that the group practices. And not only do they practice, but they enforce when somebody goes off code. So every community on earth, whether it's an ethnic community or a business or a government organization, they all operate under a code of conduct. And code of conducts are necessary for the continuance in the best interest of the group. They are vital for survival, protection, and the well-being of the group. And without codes of conduct, you will be subject to the whims and desires of those elements which are harmful to your community. Therefore, risking that the goodwill and the moral compass of individuals will be an adequate measure for the community to thrive. And of course, human history and common sense dictates that relying on the moral compass of individuals, as well as the good ethics alone of individuals, will eventually lead that group into disaster. You get me? Right? You can't just depend on somebody else to say, that they're going to be good just because they said it. You understand? Just because they said it, or just because they're around, or just because they're available. You understand? You can't just depend on that. So human nature indicates that it's a matter of time before someone takes advantage of weaknesses, rather, within the group to exploit them. This has happened with Black people time and time again. There are way too many examples of this. Way too many. We get exploited by every other people group, no matter what religion or ethnicity. It doesn't make a difference. Even in business, it doesn't make a difference. You understand? So, because we don't have a code of conduct. So, any well-functioning organization lays down what the ethical expectations are for the people within any group, and it enforces these rules accordingly for the betterment of that community at large. And establishing a code of conduct is critical in any society for unity, for standards, and for direction. Okay, I'll repeat, right? Establishing a code of conduct is critical in any society for unity, for standards, and for direction. The fact that we do not have unity in the Black community is an evidence that whatever codes we are using are not working. Not to mention, our standards are incredibly low, which is why for Black men, we are looking at Black women as our leadership because we don't have no standards. Do you get it? As well as direction, we can see that the direction our youth go is essentially regulated to whatever pop culture tells them to do. So because our standards dictate that our society is matriarchal in nature. And if you look at the culture of any community, the culture is passed on by the woman. You understand? The women are the first teachers of any community. So they are the ones who are going to pass on the culture to the children. You understand? If the women are left in charge to give direction to men without men being involved in that process, then will these youth have any sense of bravado or what you call accountability or things of this nature? Will they have that? if you leave the woman in charge of that particular job. The Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, he said, a society cannot be successful in which their women will run it. And we are the evidence of the proof. We are the evidence of that statement. Now, whether or not it is our fault, that is a different subject. But we are not getting into whose fault it is or whose fault it isn't. We're not getting into that argument. We have lots of history and lots of evidence that shows that we have been interfered with, and we don't have to get into that. The crux of the matter is that we are in a time of incredibly serious crisis. And it is up to us to actually enforce the codes that we claim that we believe in. It is up to the men to do this. And it's up to the men to make sure that if somebody goes off code, there will be consequences. So what I want to do now is I want to have a look at what Dr. Claud Anderson was saying, right, in terms of this particular issue, right, and how like how we are so behind the bar right now, and because a big part of that is because of our lack of code or staying on code. So let me just get this up here for you.
That's why when they came to America, they changed it from a sword fighting situation for a code. They changed it to a cowboy code, which says, I'll meet you tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening at sunset in the middle of the street. Bring your rod. And let's see who got the fastest draw. And see, and that's why these old westerns used to go. These went to Roy Rogers or Gene Autry, Hopalong Cassidy. They had a code of conduct that didn't make a difference when you got hurt. In return, you stood up and say, no, I'm not going for that. And see, and whites said there's no glory in being a slave. You cannot clean that up and go around talking about, well, here's what they did for us during slavery, but we survived. No, it says that, yeah, but they owe you. They owe you for the damages. The damages can be physical, financial, or emotional, but the whites did it and they owe you. And what you need to say is say now, and because of that, I'm gonna be standing up. And if you're gonna kill me, you better make sure you do a good job and don't go to sleep at night if I'm still on your plantation. So see this axe I got in my hand? I'm gonna use it. And I'm gonna start cutting wood, but I'm gonna heat it up and sharpen it up first on some of these heads, right, and on the plantation. But so we never push back, and we should push back in the courts, not necessarily in the courts where you see them now, like the Supreme Court or the local federal courts. Those things are rigged. The people the institutions that maintain racism in this country, the first and primary one who's the guardian of racism in America is the United States Supreme Court. And we all get up and say, I want to put this on the Supreme Court. I want to get on there as a Black person so I can talk about issues that don't pertain to Black folk. Why in the world you want to get on the Supreme Court to talk about issues that don't pertain to Black folk? You already got a person there pretending he's Black. When he's white, he's a white man passing for Blackness. And he's been.
Okay, so I want to touch upon this for a bit, where he said, these pastors who are pretending, or rather passing as Black. We have this in every aspect of Black society. Those who are easily, monetized in our community in order to guide us towards the benefit of our enemies. They are easily they're easily bought, very, very easily bought. And the reason why they're able to do that is because of a lack of code. Now, if you look at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, he said, for example, that do not backbite. Would you like to eat the dead flesh of your brother? In our community, backbiting is a way of life. And once you have accepted that backbiting is some sort of religious obligation, then it's very easy to be manipulated, because anybody can be sent into your community and snitch jacketed and just bring any information that they want, and you will quickly spread it without vetting it. And this happens time and time and time and time again. This is one of the main reasons why we can't move ahead, because we're forever at each other's throats and at each other's necks over disagreements. And we will make a wala wa bara over an entire disagreement. We'll cut people off because of a disagreement. And no other people group do that. They don't cut off their ties because they disagree. This is something that is almost like exclusively Black. We'll block you and cut you off, and this is even before social media. So don't blame Facebook and say everybody's doing it. If you're Black, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you had remained silent, then you would have kept the unity. So let's keep going here.
Been on and off about 25 years. Started standing up and tell white folk, no, I'm not afraid to fight. And you hit me, I'm gonna hit you back. And if you send me to a hospital, I'm gonna send you to a cemetery. And see, and that's called a code of conduct. And that's why all these whites right now is talking about they're gonna displace, and we're scared of white Black folk, they might displace us. That they came to this country to displace Black folk. White Black folk were the workhorse of this nation. They were the economic engine that drove economic development in this country. But I haven't heard one Black yet call the Confederates what they really were. They were the first terrorists in America. That's the first thing you need to know. And second,
this is another point that he mentions about self-defense. And if you look at the recent massacres that happened, if you look at the one in Buffalo, that individual actually practiced for months. And then he drove 200 miles away from where he lived and ended up in some Black neighborhood in Buffalo. He planned this out. Murdered 10 Black folk and was captured alive. And you can go on Google or YouTube and at any time and literally find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos and clips of Black people being murdered by cops with who are unarmed, who are not criminals, for traffic stops, for allegedly carrying a counterfeit bill like George Floyd. And what you have to understand is that the enemy, they don't see us like how we see them. When we see them, we just see like another human being, but they don't see you like that. When they see you, they see a high-functioning monkey. And a lot of you, by the way you act like high-functioning monkeys. Let's be real. So you get up in arms and whatnot, when a white supremacist kills you, but in your own neighborhoods, shout out to Germantown, shout out to Germantown, entire Muslim neighborhoods allow their own neighborhoods as Muslims to degrade into what your own imams are calling a war zone. Because you have zero code of conduct, zero. Anybody can come in as long as they're donating money to the mosque. You don't care where they get that money from. And you allow your imams to basically become trick daddies from the minbar, marrying scores and scores and scores of women. Marry, divorce, marry, divorce, marry, divorce, pass them off to their boys and whatnot. But you want to turn around and get angry at the enemy when they basically doing what you're doing, right? They're basically doing outside of the community what you do inside the community. And so Allah has revealed specifically rules and regulations and how you can conduct yourself in these situations. One of them is self-defense. We believe in jihad in Islam. Jihad or hijrah. That's what we believe. And the reason why you can't get to that point is because you're fractured and disunited, and you allow anybody to come into your community, black-looking folks, to tell you about the best of us. The best of us are the worst of us, and turn the whole thing upside down. So you can never keep a leader. You can never keep somebody who is sincere and concerned about you and your community, because you cannot stay on code. You cannot do it. So anyway, we'll keep watching now.
They have never had any loyalties to America. And they came here to do two things with the understanding they came poor. That's what's on the bottom of the foot of the Statue of Liberty. They came here poor. They didn't come here to be patriotic. They came here to get free land and free labor. That's what they came to America for, free. And that's what you call, when somebody does that, you call that a freeloader. They came here to freeload. And now they're now talking about we built the country. They haven't built anything. They came here to manage the country and get free land and free labor to manage it. We don't use the right words. They're freeloaders. Every white person here, his ancestor was a freeloader. All white people come here to freeload. All Asians come here to freeload. All Hispanics come up from the South to freeload. Everybody comes here to get free privileges, rights, ownership, and land and property and labor. They all do it. The only person, and they always got compensation for it. That's why every country that America's ever fought has always gotten reparations. The only people that have never fought America was just one group of people that have never fought America, and that's black people. Everybody else has fought America, and they fight America because they get benefits once the fighting is over. All these island people out here, Puerto Rico and Cubans, now come to America and get elected to public office, like you got this guy Cruz and the rest of them.
I just want to touch up on this one too. My wife and I, we talked about this subject so many times, right? About how we as Canadians, we're born and raised here, you know what I mean? And we're wondering, like, how is it that foreigners are getting all these benefits that we, like, it's seemingly impossible for us to get? Like, it's seemingly impossible. And of course, you start listening to people like Dr. Claud Anderson, and then your eyes start opening, and you start really realizing what's really going on. It's a demographic play, which is why all these foreigners are getting these benefits, and we are not. All right, right? There's some demographic magic happening here. You get me? So, in order to survive in an environment, it's a very hostile environment like that, you have to have a certain way of dealing with your own people and a certain way of dealing with other people. And it is the men that need to establish this. Anyways, let's keep going.
Down in Miami, they came here because they'd overrun black folks in Cuba and used them, call themselves white Castilians, and 80-some% of the population was black, misuse black folks, then they come to America and get elected to office so they can misuse blacks in America. And black folk never pushed back. Slavery would not have lasted 1 month if the first blacks had landed in this country, and the blacks in Africa that has 26% or 27% of the population that said, we are going to America to get our people back. We're going to take boats and go over there. Because in about 1773 up to 1776, from the Continental Congress said that we're going to keep sending them there, but you got enough people in America right now between the blacks and the Indians to run every white person from Europe back to Europe. If black were to say, we're not going to do it, if you think you're going to put me into slavery and misuse my children and my wife and kill me and abuse me and not never pay me anything and give it all to your friends coming in from Europe for free labor, you got another thought coming. They have never.
And the reason why that's never happened, right, as Dr. Claud answered and said, is because black people up until this very day, they don't see themselves as a group. You understand? Black people, even in Africa, up until this, imagine after 500 years of this stuff, we are the only people operating not as a group. Still, up until this day. Though there is a global black awakening, this is happening as we speak. Yes, this is true. There is a global black awakening, but black people in general, how do they see themselves? They see themselves as Bloods and Crips. They see themselves as East Coast, West Coast. You know, in Africa is the same type of thing. All these tribes. You have black Somalians coming all the way from Somalia, right? And they're black, clearly black, okay? Like obviously black. Coming all the way from Somalia, all the way to the west everywhere, here, there, and there, talking about, oh, I'm not black. I don't even know what that means. This is what we're dealing with. And the entire world is looking at you as one group. That's how they see you. They don't care about your tribes. They don't even know about your tribes. Nor do they care. They see you and they're like, they see you're black. When you were like, well, I'm from the East Coast. You're still black to them. They don't care. They will treat you exactly the same way. It is, whatchamacallit, segregation in the West, and it is apartheid in South Africa. The same system. And y'all haven't gotten it yet. This is how the world sees you. Anyways, let's keep going.
I told whites that they are so energized to say, we're just so happy to be here. All we want to do is get along with you. We all do it together. No. Build your own, as you've always understood. Own what you own and control. And right now, everybody, including the Hispanics, old black folk. Hispanics were the third enslaving group in the world for black folk. The first were the Arabs. We get along with all those people. We never demand anything from them. Right now, you should be telling the Arabs in Saudi Arabia all that money and gold houses and gold commodes and toilets. You owe us. You were the first ones that started exploiting black folk, starting in 767 AD after the death of Christ, and started marching into Africa saying, we're going into Africa for enrichment. And under the guise of 3 G's, God, glory, and gold. That's what we're going into Africa for.
I advise y'all to look up the Zenji Rebellion. This is what he's talking about right now. The Zenji Rebellion in the Abbasid period. And it was this rebellion that essentially started the downfall of the Abbasid Caliphate. It started the downfall of the Abbasid Caliphate. But the Zenji Rebellion, it is the largest slave rebellion in recorded history, where the black slaves that were kidnapped out of Africa and sent to the Arab East rebelled against the Abbasids. Okay, look it up.
They started trying to break into Africa and take over Africa because Africa was the most enriched, endowed group land on earth. And that's where all the riches were. All the other European countries knew it. That's why in 1886, they all scheduled what they call a Berlin Conference and brought all the nations of the world into Berlin and put a big map on the table and says, draw a circle on what you want to own in Africa. Because of the richest things on earth are in Africa. You go there and get anything you want. And right now, all the resources of Africa has been drained by the British and all those countries for all these 300 and 400 years. And now South Africa, with some of their silliness over there, the Black Congress over there just approved the darn Constitution. It says that China can come there and get all the resources they want, and gave them an affirmative action plan strictly for Chinese. And said our own people in Africa, blacks, cannot be a part of that affirmative action plan. That only Chinese can have affirmative action plans in South Africa. Now, how do you deal with that kind of stupidity? That is rough, raw, unadulterated, stupid. When I was associated with, as a chairman for economic development for Eastern and Southern governors, I was the chairman. I signed off on every darn penny they could get. And I could give them anything they wanted. All they do is come to me. I had a staff of 45 people down in Charleston, South Carolina, to give them anything they want, equipment and everything else they wanted. And but being the chairman, I was the first Black chairman for economic development and for the property disposal program. But and out of that, I was trying to warn my country by writing in my book. That's why we go back to your Powernomics book that you just referred to. The last chapter in there is chapter 8, and it told you right then what's happening right now. It says that you cannot, it's stupid, absolutely stupid. It makes no sense for this country to do what it's been doing ever since 1950s, late 1950s. You can't be that dumb by accident. There's no way, because God, nobody else would send that many stupid people to the earth, put them all in the United States. Because what they started doing when Black folk expressed a concern about getting a better quality of life, white suggested to them, we'll give you social integration. That's what y'all need. And then the Black folk had never asked for no darn social integration. What they wanted was equality in terms of ownership and control of resources. And so consequently, when blacks go and say, we'll accept that social integration, then all these whites and all these major cities decided they're going to move out. This country right there.
You know, Black people are the only people that got duped into this integration thing. Okay. And all these immigrant communities, when they come to the West, they don't practice integration at all. Okay. They build their enclave communities, right? They get their stipends or whatnot from the government. They get like their, whatchamacallit, affirmative action, which is, again, something that was explicitly meant for Black people. They take that money, build their wealth up, take government loans and whatnot, right? Because, you know, again, Black people are locked out of the economy, right? They're locked out of the banking system and whatnot, right? Through predatory banking practices. So they already know who's going to get a loan, who's not going to get a loan based upon the color of your skin. You understand? So Black people are the only people that think that moving into a nice white suburban neighborhood is moving on up. And they've been trained to think that. They've been trained to think that because of integration. And what integration does in the Black experience, all it does, it usurps the wealth, the resources, and the smartest minds from the Black community and sends them to build white wealth. That's all it is. So meanwhile, those who are living in what we know as projects and you know, as they call marginalized communities. That's what they call them now, marginalized communities, right? Those people who live there, their reality is an integration. The police basically patrol around the borders of these communities, make sure that these folks don't escape, and they have a unlimited supply of black men to go and harass and throw in jails so that they can keep convict leasing going. So now, because of this trend, if you are not if you don't have the mindset of like self-preservation of yourself, your family, and your community, and your entire mindset, you have destructive practices and you can't realize it, then what is incumbent upon you is that you have to have a group of people who are committed to stick with a specific code of conduct and smart goals in order to bring the community up, because power always comes from the ground up. And with black people, they're always waiting for the next leader, just waiting. When meanwhile, the next leader might be your child, it might be your children, and you have to raise them up from the ground up. You get me? And you're not going to do that on an individual basis. It has to be done on a communal basis. And if you think that the enemy doesn't understand and know this, then all you have to do, you don't need to look no further than what integration has done to the black community. All the best minds have always ended up working and improving white society. All of them. You get it? You know, meanwhile, you have a Chinatown, you have Little Italy, you have Little India, all these enclave communities. And the one thing you will never see in any of these communities is Leroy's Chicken and Ribs. But you got the Chinese restaurant in the black community, you got the Indian restaurant in the black community. You get it? The Arabs come in and set up shop there. Jazakallah khair. May Allah reward you and bless you and multiply for you 1,000-fold. Brother, health and healing. Hayakumullah. Everybody say Ameen. You have the Arabs coming into the black community, and wallahi, okay? This is true, and I'm going to do a video on this one day about the madhabs, okay, and the black community. Do you know that that one specific madhab, I won't mention the name, they have a fatwa. And I want you black people to think about this, okay? And it's a real fatwa, okay? And anybody can research this. That it is permissible to, when you're migrating from the Muslim lands and going to the lands of the non-Muslims, it is permissible to sell the non-Muslims pork, alcohol, and cigarettes. Something that is haram for the Muslims, but yes, you can sell this to the non-Muslims and make money for it. Now, who are the non-Muslims that they're talking about? Who are the non-Muslims that this fatwa is talking about? Somebody put in the chat, please. Who are these non-Muslims that these people are coming, getting fatwa to sell alcohol, pork, and cigarettes? And it's permissible to do that because they're not Muslim. I want you to stew on that for a little bit. So not only did they come here with that code, but they explicitly get religious fatwa to carry out aggressive and malicious practices in the black community under the name of, oh, we're just doing this to non-Muslims. You see? And that's why over here we stay on code. Let's keep watching.
Then at that point, Dr. Watson, Dr. Watkins, were about they produced about 97% of all the commercial products on Earth at that time in the late 1950s after World War II. We were the biggest producers of anything you could want. We were the major producers of shoes all around the world, telephones, radios, kitchenware, furniture, clothing, leather, anything you could name, clocks, everything, automobiles. We were the major producers. Whatever all the other countries were buying from us. We didn't have to buy anything from another country. But what white folks did, they said, well, what we'll do is that we're gonna integrate. We'll move out of these cities and let these black folks take it over. We'll move to the suburbs. And we'll use the 1955 Highway Act by President Eisenhower, and build an expressway out of these urban areas. So then we can move out to the suburbs. We'll call it suburbs, it's a new burb outside the major urban areas. We'll move all of our factories and industries and our cottage industries. We'll move them outside the city to follow our big industries.
Okay, so he mentioned a really incredible point here about the 1955 Highway Act. Okay, so the 1955 Highway Act, for those of you who don't know, the reason why this is important is it exposes a lot in terms of the ideas of the enemy, how diabolical they are, how diabolical they really are. And if you buy into their system, then all you do is help these devils destroy yourself. So the 1955 Highway Act, as he mentioned, not only was it used so that this new class, right? Because remember, before this, you had the upper class and you had the lower class. Now you have a new class of people emerging called the middle class, right? And this was one of the first, you can say, public projects in which public money was used in order to enrich corporations. And this is essentially the blueprint that is used internationally to enrich white men in suits and impoverish the darker skinned people of the earth. It's like a copy and paste system used internationally. And what it essentially is that the government now, right, will bid for contracts, right, to build huge projects like a dam or a highway or whatnot, infrastructure, right? It's funded by the government, okay? They are essentially going to send out bonds and ask the people to help fund this project through bonds, government tax bonds, right? So government issues these bonds or whatnot, and they will promise to pay back the bond with interest after a certain amount of time, okay? As well as tax money, okay? The 1955 Highway Act was weaponized in such a devastating manner against Black people that even highways themselves were built with the intention to destroy entire Black communities. And what these people said is that the reason why they're destroying this community is because, their slums, they're run down. They're not destroying them because they're Black. We're destroying them because they're run down. You get it? So they use what infrastructure as a weapon. And this strategy is used to this day everywhere on earth. If you read the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman, I showed you guys this book a few weeks ago, right? I finished the book some time ago. The New Confessions, right? The second edition, right? And the common theme is that you have these predatory contracts issued in all of these so-called third world countries. So the IMF, the World Bank, USAID will offer these countries loans in which they know that they cannot pay back. The loans now get paid to these American corporations so that they can allegedly build infrastructure like dams, like highways, like hospitals, and they present these projects to these countries and say, oh, if you build this, you build that, you have energy, and then your country in so many years will be this rich, and you'll be able to pay the loan back. But if you don't pay these loans back, right, then the corporations will have access to your resources. Yeah, get it? Yeah, get it? So they intentionally make it so that these loans will not be paid back, so that they can have access to those third world countries' resources, and thus impoverishing and enslaving the people through debt slavery. That's why you have third world countries. That's why you have broke black people, okay? It's the same system. It's a copy and paste system. And this is why it is imperative that we stay on code. In Islam, we have our own system. And if we were on code, the entire world would love our system. Because what these devils are selling the world is slavery. Yeah, get it? Yeah, get it? Sorry to explain it to you like that, but hello, Jello. Let's keep watching now.
And we'll vertically integrate them out there. And what happened is they stripped every black urban city in the United States of all its resources. They stripped them of all the big shops and buildings. They stripped them of the downtown areas. They shifted the tax base outside the city to the suburbs, and then try to figure out how to control the cities from the suburbs. Just like in the Berlin Conference, where all those countries that went into, in 1886, that went into Berlin, decided they're going to try to control all these cities that they set up, these nations. There were no nations. We didn't have all these nations in Africa. There was no Middle East. The Middle East was a part of Africa, and they built the Suez Canal and started calling it the Middle East. There was no Middle East. That was a part of North Africa, and they took all that land and we're going to call this Mauritania. And the Mauritania said, "Well, we're French. We're going to control. We're going to control all your waterways and all your seafood." And Kenya said, "Well, we're going to control and may raise tea. We'll control that." And South Africa said, "We'll take over the diamond mines, the gold mine, and the silver mines. We'll control that." Everybody decide what they're going to control in Africa. That's been going on since 1886. I haven't seen nobody try to break that. And half the blacks over there in Africa, they don't understand. What they want to do is to get along with the same people that was controlling it before Dr. Watkins. And so what they did when they said, in the meantime, the United States said, once we'll move all of our industries out, all of our textile industries, all our furniture industries, we'll move them and give them to Taiwan, Korea, South Korea, China. We'll give them our industries. And then when we get them, let them manufacture products, and then we'll buy them back from them. And so now China, we buy 57% of everything China produces, 47% of everything India produces. We buy it. We say we ship our money, our capital to those countries, so those people can be enriched and raise their quality of life, then compete with us. And that's why you got an economy decline coming, and you deserve that ass whipping you're going to get. Nobody would ship their major industries around the world to other people, then go buy it. We gave South Korea, North Korea, not North Korea, but China, Taiwan, Vietnam, everything, all these in Asia, India. We gave them all the factories they needed because they didn't want to give them to black folk. They did not.
I hope y'all heard that. I hope y'all got the gist of that. Okay? free trade and shipping out all these industries. Those of you who are older, you remember Detroit was a booming and a very wealthy, rich city. And it was the Mecca for Black people. Wealthy Black people were living in Detroit. What destroyed Detroit? Who knows? Who knows what destroyed Detroit? Was it a nuke? Nope. Was it gang violence? Nope. It wasn't any of that. It was your and my enemy who decided that, you know what? Maybe we need to let the Chinese and the Japanese do, and the Mexicans and whatnot, what these Black people are doing here. That's what destroyed it. So you got to understand that these people are playing chess. And the reason why we are easily manipulated is because our thinking is in terms of economics and worldly things, but it's not in terms of the community itself, the betterment of the community. And we can't convince everybody to be on code. That's impossible. But we as Muslims are the first ones, because we already have a blueprint that should be enjoining this code. We have a very clear, well-defined outline blueprint in the Quran and the Sunnah. And if we just follow the small things, it would be impossible even just to infiltrate, because you would see the infiltrators coming from a mile away, because there's hadith about that. Clear hadith. Who the infiltrators are, their characteristics, everything. Anyway, let's keep watching now.
I want Black folks to take over these urban cities and to control major industries. So when Black folks moved into these urban cities, there was nothing in them. They've been vacated, been run down under what they call the burnt soil philosophy, which means you can take over these cities, won't be anything in there for you all to live off of. Blacks didn't run down cities like Chicago, Gary, Indiana, and all these other cities. Whites moved out and took everything out of it. They stripped the cities of everything. And Black folk didn't know how to go in there and take over the land and then build their own communities. You see about 3-4 lines up there. Can you see those lines? Okay. Yep. Now the lowest line on it is the blue one at the bottom. Yep. You know who that is, don't you?
Of course, that's us.
Okay. Now above that, you got what? What's above you?
Hispanic.
Okay. Now go up to the next one. The red one. Who is that?
White.
Okay. And the top one is who?
Asian.
Okay. Now in this country right now, Asians have the highest per family income in the country. We didn't even have any Asians over here until way after the Civil War. Now look at them. They're over here right now doing extremely well, better than anybody in the country. Now look at see where they started. Look what year they started. Right. Look at that year. What is that? That 19 what?
I can't tell. I can't see the year because it's at the bottom. I can't see the bottom.
Okay, you can't see the bottom.
Right, show me the bottom. Okay, it looks like about 1985, 1990.
That's right, in 1985. They started pouring in here in 1985. And in that short period, up here at the top, they became the highest grossing group in the country because they have a code of conduct, they practice groupism, okay? And they buy from their own people and nobody else. They told me, said, Dr. Anderson, we don't buy from anybody else. Only you Black folk will buy from any and everybody. You have no common code conduct. You have no sense of need for your own people. You spend your money in less than 24 hours. You spend $1.3 trillion into the hands of all the other groups. You only keep 2 cents out of every dollar you earn every year. 2 cents, which again, it's impossible, humanly impossible for any group to survive off of 2 cents. Black people only keep 2 cents out of $1.3 trillion every year passing through their fingers. All the other money goes to white communities, to the Asian communities. 96% of it go out within a matter of hours. You can't, there's no way you're gonna survive. So this big economy that's getting ready to collapse in this country, we're gonna catch hell because we're already on the bottom. We've been on the bottom in 2014. You just went through a pandemic. You get ready now to go through a major recession. What are you gonna live off of? You don't produce a damn thing except sweat. And all the rich blacks in the country, they ain't gonna put the money to you. They're hoping now that they'll be the last ones that get pulled in and out and identified because they know whites will come after them sooner or later, but they think they'll be the last ones. They're gonna get the poor blacks first. That might be true, it might not be true. But right now, we cannot make it. I'm telling you that. There's no way that you can compete with any group. I just showed you the groups. And all of them are way over you. And they're replacing you in everything, in jobs. And come right in your neighborhoods and set up businesses. Your neighborhoods are wide open. You don't have not one community. I still got all these would-be black leaders in the country always talking about our communities. Quit using the word community. They don't have no damn communities. Blacks haven't got one damn community in the entire United States. Communities is where you store your values, your culture, your history, your language, your wealth, your power, your heritage, and your income, and your opportunities and jobs for businesses. They have nothing. They're totally deprived, and they're happy always dancing and singing, dancing and singing.
So at the end there, when Dr. Claud Anderson, he showed that chart, and you saw that the Asians, they have the highest per capita income, and they just got here. See, with black men, we pride ourselves on being, physically strong and masculine and tough. And we pride ourselves in these abilities to be able to fight and knock somebody out and whatnot. And one-on-one, yeah, most black people will tear somebody up. But that right there is our Achilles heel. Is because everything we do is one-on-one. Everything. We think as individuals. So if somebody now says something that we don't like, we can't just let it go. We have to react. We have to have some sort of effeminate reaction. We have to respond right then and there with no thought process whatsoever. And we put our energy and time into things that are absolutely useless and do not aid us at all. And if you look at the Asian community, not only are they tight-knit, whether they are, Pakistani or Indian or Bangladeshi or even Chinese or whatnot, they have these very tight-knit communities that help each other out. Okay, they aid each other. But not only that, but they all take self-development very seriously. And one of the reasons that we as Black folk were not able to take self-development seriously is because we are distracted by every single thing in front of us. Not to mention our environment. And on top of that, we're working as individuals. So when you are working as an individual, and then you have this culture of integration, you're trying to integrate into somebody else's culture. You understand? When you're talking about integration, where are these people trying to integrate into the Black community? Where are they? Does that exist? It's always black people trying to integrate into somebody else's community. So now we become Muslim, we have to become, Arabs and stuff, or we have to become Hanafis or Malikis or Shah. You know what I'm saying? It's weird. Weird. We're forever wearing other people's clothes. You get it? But what we should be doing is we should be absorbing the best aspects of other people's cultures and implementing it into our community, because we've been catching hell for the better part of 500 years. And after you have Islam, it is inexcusable that you have these butter biscuit imams, you have these tap dancing Scooby snack imams who still believe in 2022 that the most pressing issues in the black community is what's going on with Yaqeen Institute. How many of you black people care about Yaqeen Institute? Just put it in the chat, please. Are any of you talking about Yaqeen Institute? From what I see, black people today are talking about reparations, financial, education. These are the things that black people are talking about. Single motherhood, black family. These are the things that black people are concerned about. Who the hell cares about a Yaqeen Institute? These are the issues of the day, especially the black family. You have to understand who is there to help you and who is there to hurt you. And how are you going to understand it if you're not on code? How is this even? How are you going to comprehend what's going on? Remember, being on code is also a part of your self-development. If you are not improving yourself every single day, then you're not helping your community. Helping yourself is helping your community, whether it's through education or skills, like skills in terms of getting a trade or whatnot. You know what I mean? Learning a language, volunteering at some shelter or whatnot. These things, self-development is community development. It's the same. You can't separate the two. So if you do not do a cost-benefit analysis of your time, people who are go-getters and people who are, meticulous, the wealthy and the self-made and the people who are academics and whatnot, the one thing that they are incredibly meticulous about is their time. Where we, like a regular person, might count time in terms of days, maybe even hours. These people are not looking at time like that. They are counting the minutes, literally accounting the minutes. They are making ledgers and these task books. You get it? They can see where they put the minutes in the day, what they've done in this part of the day and that part of the day. If you don't have any direction, and we talk about this in the beginning, if you do not have any direction, will you be concerned about your time? Every single one of you should have a long-term goal, a 5-year goal. Mastery, if you're going to master something, the general consensus, mastery requires 15,000 hours of beating on a single craft. 15,000. And then you will be a master of that particular subject. Most of y'all put that time into your social media to argue with people that you don't know. So those time wasters, we are at the point where we have to abandon them. Because if we do not, when they go down, we're going down right with them. This is Noah's Ark here. You get it? All the reasoning and the history, like the history, yes, the history is important. The reasons are important. But the reasons and the history are important so that we can move forward and actually come up with a plan to develop. If we are obsessed with dogmatic issues that cause division and harm with the Black community, then those people, you need to leave them alone. Because they're not about anything. And they will be in the same spot 10, 20, 30 years from now. Now, last thing, if any brothers want to join me, the link is in the description there. I really made this for the brothers because it is the brothers or the men whose responsibility is to make this a reality in order for the development of the community. And I want to mention this. For men, particularly Black Muslim men, one of the main reasons why we are catching a lot of destruction in the Black community is because we are incredibly lackadaisical and nonchalant in the mates that we choose. We choose the most hood rat, treacherous women to marry because she looked good. Women who are not wives, they may have become Muslim, but just because they become Muslim doesn't mean that they're wife material. And there are two major reasons why I personally see why brothers choose these types of women. Okay. The first is because they themselves, the brothers themselves, have not developed themselves in order to widen their options. So they're left and they're stuck with these bottom feeders. And then they go and they marry these women, they multiply with them, and they just add to the, the downfall of the community at large. That's the first reason. The second reason is because you've been told to marry these women by your imams. You've been told to marry these types of women by your imams. If your imam is telling you to marry these types of women, you need to dump that imam. Because we have way too much evidence of the destruction in the community. Broken families upon broken families upon broken families. For those of you who missed it and you think that I'm joking and I'm exaggerating, allow me to remind you, please.
That's the reason I'm here today. Muslim, I need you to make dua for my little brother here. But this is Philly, man. What y'all got going on here, man? Like, this shit is sickening, man. Like, y'all changing lives, man. Like, for generations. Y'all killing mothers, y'all killing sisters, y'all killing brothers, y'all killing sons, y'all killing nephews. For what? About internet beef, about a chick that's whoring out here anyway, about a block that ain't even yours, about money that you're going to get to go spend and give it to somebody. It's not like you want no money out here to save. Y'all niggas want money to spend. That's what y'all doing? That's what y'all doing out here, right? Yo, shit is sickening. This shit is sickening. Talking to the funeral director, he says he get them 2-3 times a day. That's what we doing to our Muslim brothers, huh? We're not protecting each other. I mean, if we ain't protecting each other, you're definitely letting anything happen to them. That's what we doing, huh? I gotta wake up. I gotta wake up, man. I'm gonna tell you like this. Everybody must face death. So you out here push and play, you think you parking shit, putting people through grief about their kids, you'll be here one day also. You know what I'm saying? Just know, when the law asks you about your deeds, your good deeds, that's what to get you to Jannah in paradise. Anything else, be done with. I gotta do better, man. I gotta do a whole lot more better, man. This is sickening. I hate to say that I'm even from Philly, like, you know what I'm saying? Not that it's better anywhere else in any other country or any other state, but I can only worry about where I'm at right now, you know what I'm saying? Make a change one block at a time, one house at a time, one block at a time. This is crazy.
And the reason why that's happening is because a major reason why that's happening is because you are not choosing women correctly. And if you are not able to pick a righteous woman, then you don't need to get married. What you need to do is you need to develop yourself. How is it that we have this 30-year-long history, 3 decades solid in Philly of Islam, and then you have a situation like that? How? So there needs to be a group of brothers who are dedicated to remaining on code and start the change from the ground up, because that's the only way it's going to happen. Any woman can talk a good game about, oh, I'm a good woman. I'm good. Good women get married. Good women get married. The problem is that you're not marrying the good woman. You're marrying the bottom feeders. And then you make babies with them. And then these things happen. When you should be letting these heifers go extinct. And you marry these bottom feeders because that's all you can get. Because you haven't developed yourself enough to marry a good woman. And these imams who are telling you to marry these types, they need to fear Allah. They need to fear Allah. Those heifers, that all they do, they are just cogs in a nigger factory. They are cogs in a nigger factory. We mentioned before that it is the woman that passes on the culture to the people. And you find all these women talking about whoever I marry, better love my kids, because the woman will love her kids more than anybody. In Islam, the kids belong to the father. You get it? In Islam, the kids belong to the father. In the black diaspora, slave diaspora, the kids belong to the mother, and it is subsidized by your very enemy through the court system, through the child support system, through the welfare system, through the prison industrial complex, to make sure that your men are forever in jail. And power is never, ever, ever just given up. No people in history has ever just given up power. Do you think that these black women who have tasted this power that was given to them by your enemy, they're just going to give it up to you because you're a black man? Power is taken, and that's why this meeting is for the men. If you want power, it is incumbent upon you to take it. And you're not going to take it without long-term goals, without discipline, without all kinds of discipline. Discipline with your time, sexual discipline, work ethic, morals. How are you going to take the power? But because you just, talked real hard and punched a few people in the face? That's how power is taken? In the streets, yes. With the low lives and the people who are powerless, that's how you take power. Yes, that's how you do it. But real power is never taken like that. Look at the example of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. How was power given to him? What, the Quraysh just woke up one day and say, oh, this Islam stuff, it sounds real good. Here, take it. Is that how it was given to him? Or did he have to fight for it? The mental trauma that black men have gone through is a hurdle that is so steep and so covered with danger that we look at it and we don't even try. But we have Allah now. So the haram now is the not trying. You get it? If you push forward, then you will get rewarded from Allah whether you succeed or not. But the point is you have to push. You must push. But if you remain undisciplined with your mouth, with your loins, with your time, with this, with that, then nobody really cares about your complaints. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about you're a descendant of a slave. Nobody cares that, Jim Crow. Like, why would they care if you are showing a lack of effort to improve your situation? You are literally the bottom rung, and you are not getting out of this situation without Allah. So how is it when you understand this, that you're at the bottom rung, you're not getting into the situation without Allah, that somehow in your Negro mind, you think it's cool to be off code? Like, what? This is how infiltrators get into the community, because we're off code. We're easily bought. We talk too much. The infiltrators and the enemy and the munafiqun, they destroy entire communities for cheap, barely spending $1. Why? Because we are going to cut off this brother because he's a Hizbi. We're going to cut off that brother because he's a Sunni. We're going to cut off this brother because this and that. We will find the reasons to cut off our own people. And the Prophet ﷺ, he made it haram for us to cut off the family ties, whether they're a Muslim or not. You cannot control what other people do, but you can control how you react. That is staying on code. Control yourself. If you insist on marrying the heifers, the most destructive women in our society, the marriage banditas, the women who have play schools in their house look like a nursery or something. Look like a kindergarten, but they're all brothers and sisters, but they all look different. Those type of, you insist on doing that. No other community does that, just us. If you insist on doing that, then we have to cut you off because it's clear that you're not trying to move forward. As for the women, I'm really not trying to address the women, but as for the woman, then a woman, your job is to compete for a man, not to dominate them, not to compete against them, but to compete for them. If there are any sisters listening, that's your job. Keeping a man is probably one of the easiest things, to do. To keep a man is a very simple task if you're dedicated to it. You have to be fit, feminine, as Kevin Samuels always says, cooperative, submissive, and have some basic white skills like cooking and cleaning and stuff. If you can do that, you'll be able to keep any man. In the Black community, it's the opposite. The women are incredibly masculine, loudmouth, always competing against her man, uncouth and undisciplined with their mouth and their private parts, just like the men. Men are the same way, right? This has to stop. But again, I was more addressing the men anyways. I wasn't really trying to address the women. I'll address the women and maybe in another video, right? But anyways, we've been going on for like an hour and a half now almost, right? I really wanted the brothers to participate, to hop in this live, really, because it really is for you, right? And I really think this is a very important topic. As Black men, we need a code of ethics and a code of standards and a code of, basically a code of standards that we hold each other to. Black excellence is not something that should just be imagined and like a talking point. It should be practiced every single day. Every one of us should have a 5-year goal, and every one of us should be helping each other with our 5-year goals. If you don't have a 5-year goal, you need to get one right now. And you have to be able to divide your 5-year goals into years, months, weeks, and days until you reach that goal. You understand? But the problem is we're kind of running around, meandering around without any direction whatsoever, even in our adulthood. Right? And it's not enough to keep pointing the finger at white folks, right? There comes a point in time, especially after you're a Muslim, you have to take responsibility and accountability because Allah will help you. He promised to help you. He promised to help you. You're the one who just has to do the work. So thanks for everybody for joining me today. I'd like to thank the Brother Health and Healing for your generosity. May Allah reward you and bless you and multiply it for you 1,000-fold. Ameen. Everybody say Ameen. And thank everybody for joining me tonight as well. And on Patreon, we have the archive. So please support the channel on Patreon. As you know, the Feachaz is the original Black grassroots Muslim media channel. We don't pull no punches here. We tell it exactly how it is. And we speak to our people unapologetically all of the time. Okay? We are not apologizing here, and we're not pandering to anybody. We have so much work to do in the Black community that's not funny, and we don't have time to mince words. We have to tell it exactly as it is so that we can get out of this hell that we're in right now. So subhanak wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
We are the Muslim wing of the black grassroots. Unapologetic, strong, uncompromising voices that have been in the faces of the enemy and those who tap dance for them. The Feachaz is proud to present the archives exclusively on Patreon.